Hello, you beautiful people, home skillet biscuits, and everyone in between. It is I, Aquarius, birthday January 25th, and thank you for tuning back in to As Told by Aquarius, where we are all living in a fucking fantasy. So hopefully the words of wisdom can help us figure out how to navigate it, which read, don't be afraid to have a go at something of a creative nature. It may be entirely new to you, but chances are you have a talent for it that needs to be brought into the open. Give it some thought over the next few days and then go for it. I love when I feel like the words of wisdom are speaking directly to me because I've decided to 1, go to Lollapalooza, yes me, and 2, take improv classes when they open back up in New York City. I feel like the world needs more of me, but just not on social media, so that's my way of doing it. And look guys, the world needs more of you as well. The fantasy that you created for yourself to live for when the world opens up, start living that shit now. And to continue talking about fantasies, let's talk about one person who I feel is currently living in one of the greatest fantasies ever, Ariana Grande, who, for zodiac purposes, is a Cancer, and Cancers are known to be very sensitive and caring people. Also, when they are in love or in extreme in-depth like, they fall fast and hard. Now, if you are a fan or stan of Ariana Grande, take everything I'm saying with a grain of salt, but this specific Cancer has a connection to Aquarius when it comes to living in fantasies, and I'll explain. So in 2018, she was married to a comedian, and later in 2018, that engagement was called off. Many speculate it was due to the passing of her most recent ex. The following year, in 2019, she came out with an album entitled Thank You Next, signifying that I'm moving on, bitch, as well as the idea of her going into a phase where she would do more self-searching and self-care. That album was amazing, by the way. Now let's jump to 2020. COVID happens. Now this is where I think the fantasy begins. Now we know COVID was a very difficult and stressful time for many, but for some, love flourished, and Ariana Grande happened to be one of those people. Now according to social media, she started to date her current boo around the beginning of quarantine, so obviously that would be March. Fast forward to May 21st of 2021, she is now the wife of her quarantine boo. Now let's say for hypothetical purposes, she met her current husband in the middle of 2019, which means at max, up until now, she may have known this man for a whole entire year and some change. Now, to be honest with you, her situation is most women's fantasies. You meet a guy, you like the guy likes you, you are in deep like, almost in love, you guys are on the same page, you want the same things, he can help you out, you can help him out, you guys get to better each other, and then he proposes maybe a good 8 months, maybe a year later, and then you guys actually get married. Now, to be honest with you, I think it's a little fast. Personally, I like to give things like this, 3 years at minimum. But who am I to judge, bitch? I'm single. However, the connection of it all is Aquarius are known to daydream, live in their own world, and live in their own fantasies. I, for one, live in fantasies quite frequently. The amount of relationships I've had with Trey Songz and Drake are endless. And let's not even talk about me fantasizing about my crush. I have actual physical access to this man, so we have done any and everything under the sun and moon. The difference between it all is Ariana got to have her fantasy come into reality. Aquarius, we just like to live in our fantasies because they're fun as fuck. They're like our happy place. And they're like stories that we would like to read in books but are just too lazy to write them. But I like to think when we do create fantasies, especially involving people that we are entertained by or we actually like, we do keep some of their real life traits and characteristics within the fantasy. Exaggerate them? Hell yes. But there's still some reality there. So the downfall of living in or creating these fantasies, especially if they involve real life people, we set our expectations a little bit too high or dramatize them to the point where we want it to exist. And that's not how life works. For example, I recently came into contact with someone and they stimulated the mind. They gave me food for thought. There were things that we had in common. I found them sexually attractive and I was thinking like, ooh, this is nice. This is nice. I haven't encountered this in a very long time. I think I want to put them in my pocket. So like many Aquarians whose brain never turn off when they're trying to go to sleep, the fantasy ensued. We had a little group meet up at a dive bar, which everyone slowly trickled off and it was just left with me and him. Later we went back to his apartment. We watched some anime. I literally have a full layout of what his apartment looks like in my head in various detail with specific posters on the wall. We started doing shots. Eventually that led to us doing the hanky panky. I woke up in one of his t-shirts. We laid on the couch and ate breakfast burritos from Trader Joe's. Like, it was a magnificent moment. No, but those Trader Joe's burritos are the shit. Do not go in there and start buying up 20 just because I mentioned them. I'm serious. I will fight you. So now that I have lived in the fantasy that I have created about this man, the next time we come into contact, will I be disappointed that his energy does not match the energy in my fantasy? More than likely, I will be. And I don't think I'd be disappointed with the energy he would give me specifically at first. I would probably be disappointed in the energy that he just gives the overall situation. Now, if I make attempts to flirt and then I don't get that energy back, I'm gonna feel some sort of way. Not gonna lie. And it sucks because we just want people to do what we want them to do, because in our fantasies, everything just works out better for both people. And it's so entertaining. But that's not how life works. And if you created a fantasy about somebody in your actual life, it comes off as they are a pure letdown, because it's like you're not living up to what I expected you to be. However, you created those own expectations, and you can't force them upon somebody, especially if they never gave you a hint, a clue, or any verbiage that they can do that. But I think the cool part about living in a fantasy with someone is that at any time, at any point, if they ever disappoint you, piss you off, or make you upset, you can always go relive into that great fantasy that you created about them. Like that once upon a time situation. Like once upon a time, I remember like when we was in a gondola in Venice, and like you just was feeding me like fresh picked mozzarella and prosciutto, and we had like some Pinot Grigio, and it was like music playing in the background, and everything was so sweet. Like you was my gondola babe. The memory. And scene. So overall, is Ariana Grande living in her best Cancer fantasy right now? Hell yes. Do I wish her nothing but greatness and positivity in her new marriage, because her previous track records for the last 4 years is a struggle? Hell yeah. Should we continue creating fantasies about people we do and don't have access to keep us in happy places in our minds? Of course. Should we expect anything from these fantasies that we created to actually happen in reality? Absolutely not. And if you ever wanted any of these fantasies to turn into real life actions, take them out of the fantasy world and turn them into goals. And hey, if you ever needed a book idea, I'm telling you, your fantasies, perfect start. All I want is like a little mini excerpt dedication in the back of the book, like, thank you Aquarius birthday January 25th for giving me the idea to turn my fantasies into a book. Shout out to you, boo. And if you actually do take the time to turn your fantasies into an Amazon book, send me a DM. I'll buy it. Live long and prosper, you beautiful people.